You're listening to the She Lift Project podcast, a show dedicated to helping women achieve higher levels of success in the workplace. No matter where you are in your career, we want to help you grow. Now here's your host, Cynthia Kirkpatrick, a CPA, CFP, and Senior Financial Advisor at Moneta Group.
Welcome to another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. I'm Cynthia Kirkpatrick. We're happy to have everybody joining us today, wherever you're at. And we're really excited to speak with Carolyn Mancini. I'm going to have to read some of your bio because I think it's all good. I don't want to leave any of it out. But you grew up in Illinois, and your family, grandparents had, you say row crop, animals, farms. I mean, basically a big farm. My family kind of grew up from that. But you live in Ladue, Missouri now with your husband, 3 girls, and your husband's a business owner. But the 3 girls, so you're really busy. 15, 7, 5. Yep. Extremely busy. Mm-hmm. And you are most often working out of the home office, or out of your home office, but you're an MBA. You've been with we'll talk about this probably at some point. You've been with KSDK and marketing and communications and different things. But the last 24 years, you've been with the largest agricultural company in the world, fair to say, in the world? Mm-hmm. One of.
Yeah.
And you're in Strategy Enablement Group, which I'll let you explain more about that so that I don't even try to fill that in for the layman out there. And really where it started from, we'll get into this, is customer service, different states, different situations. So I know we have a lot to learn from you today. So thanks for joining me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Anything in that piece that you want to add or that I missed?
Just, grew up on a family farm, but, never really anticipating that I would go into agriculture at all. Just kind of enjoyed the farm from a kid perspective, touring, grandma's garden and playing in the hay fields and, things like that, just enjoying life on the farm. But today I'm heavily involved in agriculture and have been for the last 24 years. So I'm specifically responsible today for strategy enablement associated with our digital online platforms as it relates to how our employee customers go online and interact with our company, as well as our distributor partners and then our end farmer customers. So if you're one of our distributors and you want to place an order, or you're a farmer and you have a performance claim, or you're an employee and need to look up the status of a delivery or shipment, I help articulate the business perspective of how those personas, the farmer, the distributor, and those employees would interact with these digital systems to our IT professionals who are building those things out.
So it's, if I were to think about it, almost like a translator between IT, between the users, between the company, everyone that needs to be a part of it involved, you can help connect them in a way that comes with a good solution.
Exactly. Yes.
You brought up the farm. I have to ask, you mentioned some of those. Were those your favorite memories of the farm?
Yeah, I mean, riding the pigs and chasing the pigs around, right? Hanging out with my grandparents and my parents and just, go outside and play and just being outside. Obviously, iPads and that digital connectivity wasn't necessarily a part of my, childhood experiences. So yeah, anytime I can be outside in nature, I mean, that's my passion and what really makes me happy.
And it's funny you brought this up. I mean, what a crazy connection that you grew up on a farm. Right. Never in your dreams did you think you'd end up in agriculture. But here you are doing that, being that liaison between the farmers, how you grew up, and the companies and the producers out there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I grew up just really, I'm a natural learner. I love to learn, but really I grew up and, got my MBA, Master's of Business Administration, because I love business and all the different facets of that, and kind of knowing that holistic picture and being able to provide that business perspective. But yeah, the fact that I can incorporate kind of my childhood, passions and love for being outside with my career has been awesome.
Do you think that gives you an advantage, an edge, having probably a unique background to some of the people you work with?
Yeah, for sure. I think I take for granted a lot of my expertise and perspective because it just comes naturally.
Right. It's ingrained in you.
Exactly. Yeah. I call it you can have a visceral experience with something in addition to having like the real business acumen associated with it too. And I feel like that was what drives me here.
So going from farmer to college, communications business, what was that just sort of, I'm not sure what I want to do, I'm going to go into this, or what drew you to that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I love communication and connecting with people, being able to articulate really complicated things in simple ways, kind of putting things in layman's terms. I've only, dabbled in kind of the communications realm. My husband's a small business owner, and I've been in like a commercial for him, just as kind of a fun thing that we collaborated on. But I think that marketing communication skills has served me well, and I've learned a lot about my weaknesses and strengths within that.
Any that stand out to you, learning about your weaknesses or strengths, or that interaction with your husband?
Early in my career, I always wanted to really know and be able to articulate the perspective of whoever my end customer was, right? Seeing things and communicating things from their perspective. So one of the highlights for me was really early in my career when I didn't have a family and I was able to move. I went through 4 different corporate relocations in order to be able to have positions that were customer facing. So having moved multiple different geographies across the South and the North, and getting those geographical nuances allows me to be able to communicate those perspectives in a way that I'm not sure you could unless you had those particular types of roles. I think you can go into like a supply chain role, right? Or manufacturing or procurement or finance. And I think you can inevitably do that. But my recommendation to folks would be to also have had a chance to walk in the shoes of whoever your end customer is, so that you can really have that purpose and passion and job satisfaction versus not knowing, kind of what the end game is, right? Being in finance and never having set foot on a farm or in a retailer's space, to me, I wouldn't have as much personally satisfaction.
So as you mentioned, it looks like it goes back to connecting, articulating, communicating, and seeing that on the end that really fulfills you, and knowing all those pieces helped you do the best job possible for them.
Yes, absolutely.
So you get to the agricultural company. So we graduate through college. You did some stints in the communication world.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How did you get from communication world to agricultural world?
It's all about your relationships and networks. I mean, unless you're in a highly technical field, people want to know that you care and they want to enjoy working with you and doing business with you. So I found that pretty much all the roles I've gotten have been because of personal networks and connections I've had. So for example, during my, Southwest Airlines marketing internship, I was in charge of promoting Southwest Airlines on, St. Louis University's campus and giving away tickets and going to all the different associations and talking to them about Southwest Airlines and getting them signed up for the rewards programs and things like that. So a lot of communication skills there and marketing skills. And actually my manager during that internship worked at the company that I've been at for the past 24 years. So my advice to folks is that never let anybody else control your career or your future. If someone says, "Oh, I got you taken care of, I'll, network on your behalf" or something, I would always take that as a very personal mission of yours to put yourself out there and meet people and make that personal connection. So my connection and success in that role got me to the company I've spent a very long time at.
Right. What are some tips, or how have you best networked?
I think it's just doing a really great, job, at the current position that you have, right? And I also make sure that I'm also following up with the folks that I've met in my previous roles, right? Whether it's, quarterly, just saying, hey, farmer dealer, what have you been up to? How have things been going? Just staying in touch with those networks. But then also developing new ones, right? I have, been at my company for a very long time, and I can say that I'm seeking more. I'm wanting more. And part of how I do that is, connecting with new people, changing my patterns and the places I'm surrounding myself in. So, for example, that's how I met you.
I was just going to say, that's how we met.
Yeah. I had never been to Missouri Athletic Club ladies coffee before. And I find that I learned so much more about myself by learning about you, right? Whether it's like, I totally resonate with that and that's me, or that's not me, but I can still appreciate the differences, right? So,
as you talked about, it's learning and growing. So always having that learner, grower, openness mindset.
Absolutely.
Exactly how we met. I haven't gone to too many of them, a few of them, but meeting you there and just connecting on several different things. One of this being the podcast, because another woman there has already been on the show.
Yeah.
And to talk about, hey, let's get together, let's grab a drink, let's get to know each other more. Exactly. And here we are.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely have that learner thirst, right? Whether that's my personal life, growing, personally and becoming a better mom or wife, but then also professionally. So yeah, I think always, seeking out new circumstances and is what drives me.
But like you said, don't let the old relationships kind of sail off into the sunset.
Yeah.
And don't forget those. Keep cultivating it in a, I think a, true friendship, valued way.
Yes.
Not necessarily, I'm going to keep this relationship going because maybe I'll get something out of it down the road.
Right. Just out of just because I enjoyed your company and who you were and the experiences we had together. For example, it's been years since I worked in the procurement organization within my company. And the reason I have this position today is because someone that I worked with multiple years ago called me and said, hey, Carolyn, I think you'd be fantastic for this digital transformation role, right? She worked with me in procurement, which has nothing to do, with digital transformation, but I was more of an oddity in procurement. It was procuring all of our, sales and marketing and market research and corporate reputation work. So it was definitely, most people that are in a procurement profession are very, that's their profession, right? You don't normally come from the business and move to the procurement organization. But this gal, through working together, saw my business acumen and knew that I'd be great at articulating our retailers and farmers and employees' perspective on how they wanted to do business online. How do you consolidate multiple different systems down into one so you don't have to be using 10 different applications to get your job done and things like that.
And you don't have an IT background, so it's not like
never
somebody out there can say, oh, well, especially women, right? I have to have these skill sets in order to apply for that position or take that position on.
Yeah.
I mean, when you say digital solutions, I'm thinking of somebody has to have IT background.
Right, for sure. Yeah.
Not what you have. It sounds like it's all in the communication.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just the diversity of my experiences, across the commercial sales and marketing organization and supply chain, having, worked in sales, I made sure that I knew, what the distribution centers looked like, what the manufacturing facilities were like. I took it upon myself to really make sure that like I said, kind of like that MBA, I knew a little bit about everything, about every touch point that would impact my customer, so that I could provide them feedback on how they could be doing better or what could be set up differently in order to make us all successful. So
is that normal in your role? Or you said oddity before. Is that how you became an oddity?
Even being a female in sales and the agricultural business made me an odd person.
Well, we'll definitely get back to it. In fact, I'm going to write that down so I don't forget. But what I don't want to lose sight of is you had mentioned earlier just taking those leaps of going to different places in the country, different roles.
Yes.
How did that happen? You get pulled in because of your networking, because of your hard work too, really. You get pulled into this company. Where did you start?
Oh, I started in the customer service department. Again, I also think a customer-facing role or having a customer service role like gives you that diversity of perspective, right? Working with the sales organization or the distribution channel, and like the end customers. So I started out in customer service, worked there for a year, and then moved on to strategic account management, kind of that business-to-business account management with our largest distributors, and then from there. Just it was a company initiative, getting behind the company initiative was how can we be more attached to our customer? And I said, the best way for me to do that is to go into a sales role. And they're like, great. Well, why don't you move to Louisiana, to the Southern Delta? We're going to start up, a sales trainee program, and you can learn agronomics at an intimate level, which I hadn't done when I worked on the farm. I wasn't asking about what's the planting population and what's the growing stages of this corn, mom, dad, grandma, really moving to the South to begin a new program, even for the company, to have somebody in the corporate headquarters. So really having a corporate HQ headquarters position and then having these satellite roles has been fantastic. I've taken a lot of like first time role creations. Like, this is a brand new thing that we're piloting. Why don't you go ahead and start it? So this has been, I was in my early 30s at the time, had the flexibility to move. It was quite intimidating, moving to Louisiana. I didn't realize that I was necessarily really typecast as a Midwesterner, Northern girl, and immersed myself in the culture of the South, learning, the cotton, the soybean, and corn market down there. Really felt it was important for me to understand. We have, glyphosate manufacturing sites down there, all different things associated, research and development farms and things like that. And I just took it upon myself to learn as much as possible while I was there, learn from folks. Yeah. And I felt like that has served me well and made me successful with where I am today.
So you mentioned starting new roles and going to Louisiana. What was that like when you found out? Again, I assume Illinois, Missouri. Yep. You lived in the Midwest, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And you're going to go to Louisiana. You're youngish, younger than us right now.
Yes.
Probably a new experience, a new part of the country.
Yeah.
How did it? Yeah. Did you meet with somebody? How did that evolve? And what were your thoughts going into that?
It was certainly intimidating, and what I anticipated being an experience that would grow my technical and agricultural knowledge ended up really being a cultural experience. Southern Louisiana is, that Southern charm, very relationship oriented, full of that grit and grace, sportsman's paradise, lots of hunting and fishing type activity, especially in the agricultural world. So it was also during Hurricane Katrina, so there was just a lot of swirling factors and Southern experiences that I had and an education that I hadn't anticipated, the nuances of working in sales. And one of my first experiences, not having worked in the headquarter corporate office, right, and getting that regional expertise. And so my position, I was responsible for calling on our distributors. So it's a very large agricultural company, so we would rely on our distributor network to deliver our products to the end farmer customers. So a lot of what you do is educating and coaching and relationship building to get those retailers to sell your products, right? To buy and sell your products. So I get my sales role, and I start calling on my Louisiana dealers. And one of my first retailers, I go into his facility. He's touring me around his warehouse, showing the seed treatment location, where all the bags of corn and seed are. He's riding around the forklift and kind of moving some things. And then we move to his office, where, I'm anticipating, like, okay, I've learned about his operation. I already know, because I always come prepared with knowing as much historical sales information, the history of that relationship with the organization. And I go to, to a situation where I'm at least, let's replicate your order that you had last year. And he's like, well, started complaining about the price. And I said, obviously, I know price is very important. Did you know that, our company spends X millions of dollars a year on research and development in order to be able to provide you with these products? And he said, get out and don't ever come back to my location. He cussed me out and told me to leave immediately.
So you go from this, I would imagine, a pretty cool experience.
Yeah.
Almost being brought in to the family. That's what I would think.
Yeah.
That you get to see all of this. Yeah. And now it's time to talk business and relate. And
he asked me to leave. So I had been applying all of my negotiation and the skills that I had honed in order to be successful. And here I am kicked out. And I'm driving away and obviously completely shell-shocked, right? And so I called my, neighboring colleague that had, surrounding counties that I didn't manage and they managed. And I said, this is what just happened to me. What am I going to do? Like, I'm going to get fired. I just got fired by one of my biggest retailers, And he said, well, just buy him a bottle of, Fifth of Jack Daniels and you head back in there next week. And so that's what I did. And it worked. And he ordered from me. And it was just really a great experience, right? That hadn't gone as I had planned. And I just think it's one of those strategy enablement, like feathers in my cap. Like, had that not happened to me, and had I not given the company line and had it fall flat, I wouldn't understand. I wouldn't be as successful in my corporate headquarter role as I am today.
Do you, looking back, would you have changed using the company line? Do you think anything else you could have said would have changed what happened?
I'm not sure. I think listening more, right? I think people having the knowledge and sharing your expertise and the level of in-depthness that about any particular person or situation. I think you have to be strategic about the information you share and when, based on the maturity of your relationship, right?
Yeah, great advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you come out too early with too many facts
yes.
and your expertise, it seems like it's all about you.
Yes. And that was definitely the education I received in the South, especially as being a Northern girl and them used to more of the sweet Southern belle type. That was way too aggressive and probably, you know what I mean? Nobody cares really how much you put into it, right? It's their personal experience. I should have been asking more questions and developing that relationship a little bit more, I think, before asking for that sale. And then just not sharing that I knew so much. I think you have to be strategic about that.
So before that moment, would you have done some additional relationship building prior to the sale? So maybe the third time you're together, now you talk about the sale.
Right.
Would you have changed that lead up at all? Or do you think it would have been what it was anyway and it was a great learning lesson?
No, I think I should have taken more time to nurture the relationship before asking the sale. I had that a self-made sense of urgency about executing on the sale, and I should have let it mature more.
And that's also, I think there's been a transition or evolution in sales and the relationships,
yes.
both from just a learning, but also probably more women being in these seats that we, not always, but maybe
yes.
tend to lean into sales differently, maybe that slower relationship build versus
Absolutely.
the metrics that you might have been measured on, which was the old, go in there, one meeting, get the sale, go here, get the sale, go here. I mean, did that potentially impact how you approach that situation?
Absolutely. And I just think it's those geographical nuances that you just couldn't possibly teach. You have to experience it, right?
Do you think there's anything you could have done? Again, this is all, you were late 20s, 30, all looking back hindsight, but maybe we'll have some of those listening. going back, is there anything you would have done to prepare for that transfer to Louisiana? Could you have talked to some of the other sales reps in the area? And what do I need to know? How do we do business down here?
Yeah, I think it's definitely, I had been told that I should probably play down my intelligence, and I think just having your values straight and what you're willing, from an integrity standpoint. I'm not someone that wanted to play dumb or giggle, and those were some coachings I received, kind of make sure you don't show up looking prepared, because they will want to think that they can get one over on you, or you know what I mean? Obviously, when you're representing a large company, they know that you have a pocketbook, you know what I mean? And you have something to give, right? So I think I heard the advice, and I did not want to heed it, because I wanted to be seen as an intelligent female professional in that industry. But I also think you have to respect the nuances of the culture and the region that you're participating in.
So with that being said, if you could go back, would you play down your knowledge of the statistics and the facts? Again, not leaning into necessarily that giggly girl.
Yeah.
But pulling back, one, and two, maybe this isn't fair to ask two questions at one time. Do you think that advice was given to you because you were female, potentially going into the South where women may be viewed differently? Would that same advice been given to a male?
Oh, absolutely not. I wouldn't have changed a thing. I loved that experience. I loved that heated, uncomfortable situation, because that like this, it's never comfortable being in an interview, right? But that's how you grow. And if you're operating in your comfort zone, you're always going to get what you've always gotten, So if you want something more than you have today, you have to be uncomfortable, and you have to be willing to experience those types of things. So I wouldn't have changed it. I heard the advice, and I wasn't willing to compromise my values and who I am as a person.
But what you said there was, you said, I'm going to ask for some help. So you called another rep. So you could have been upset about it. You could have gone back and tried the same exact thing. Mm-hmm. But instead, and I could feel in my heart, in my gut, I could just feel probably how you felt.
Yes.
And it almost a redness, a heat.
Yes.
But you took that opportunity to say, okay, I got to get back in there.
Yeah.
And I got to learn.
Right.
Instead of staying in my silo and learning for myself, I'm going to ask for some help on people who've been down here.
And that's definitely a challenge for me. More in my personal life, I feel like it would be a weakness for me to ask for help. So I feel like I over excel at it at work, though. You know what I mean? I'm able to compartmentalize that. And now I believe that I don't do anything alone, right? I know in the field, I knew that I needed my colleagues to continue to coach me. I know I needed my customer service rep that worked at headquarters. I know I needed my marketing guys to come up with some good programs so I could be able to, package things and sell them effectively, right? And definitely my colleagues and my manager. So I think, honing a team, never thinking that whatever position or wherever you're at, that you can go at it alone, because you could, but it's not going to be as easy as if you really develop the relationships within your little team, right? And create that sense of camaraderie and a sense of belonging. So I made sure that there was excellent follow-up once I did complete the sale with that dealer. So he had a really good customer service experience, so that he got his product when he said he was going to get it. You know what I mean? So it made me work that much harder for him to make him happy.
Well, so I have to know, you go in there the next week or the next meeting with the Jack.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
He was like belly laughed, you know what I mean? He was tickled pink by that, and I think it just completely let down his guard and, opened him up. I think, he appreciated my boldness that I came back, especially bearing treats.
That's great. And probably had a good long relationship after that.
Yes. Everything went great. Yeah.
So you're in Louisiana. You mentioned not only learning the business acumen, but the cultural side of things was a big educational point. Where do you go? Why and where? Why do you leave Louisiana to your next stint, and where did you go?
Because I had the thirst for meeting people, learning different sales styles. I had developed, again, back to your networks and the people that you develop a relationship with. I had a colleague recommend me for a special assignment due to some potential litigations that could have happened, and was able to mitigate a lot of kind of weather-related agricultural things that had happened. So morphed into a different role for me, working for our leaders out of our Memphis office. So I got put on a special assignment to mitigate some catastrophes that were happening at the time. And so after that special assignment, I knew that I still wanted to go back to sales and have those similar experiences. So at the time, my position had been backfilled, and I got offered, a previous manager of mine was now a business manager in Nebraska. And so then I moved from Louisiana to Nebraska.
Different culture in Nebraska?
Oh, completely. Yeah.
Able to use what you learned down in Louisiana?
For sure.
Transferred over to Nebraska?
Yeah. Because I had similar, I think in that particular industry, and being a female, they immediately wanted to push your buttons to see what would make you crack. And so when I was presented with those similar situations where, hey, you're going to buy me and my wife a trip to Bermuda, and I would say, yeah, I would love to do that. Let's come up with the sales targets and let's meet them together, and so I can get you that trip. You know what I mean? But had I not had the grooming that I'd had and those uncomfortable conversations, I probably would have just been knocked down on my heels and not been able to say anything. But if you can, pivot the conversation and kind of anticipate those uncomfortablenesses, that end up being a really great relationship too, right? Like let's get down to business and come up with some goals together, and you can meet your whatever your needs are, and I'll get my needs met too. So, but yeah, completely different culture. But yeah.
I like your response, because that's not only in sales, but I think in life, when you're trying to figure out how to set up boundaries, have those difficult conversations, not always give in. It was great. I'm on board with you now together.
Yes.
Let's figure out how to make that possible, what we both need to make that work. And if we could use that skill in our life, how much better life would be.
Yeah, I've also had experiences where in relationships, if those people, I have had people that have decided they don't like me and they're not going to like me. And I feel like there is a particular way to respond to that. For example, when I was in the procurement organization, I was one of the top performers, saving the company millions of dollars, negotiating the best talent on whatever, market research we were doing or what have you. So just really loving building my expertise and displaying it, and the procuring of the things that I'd already been selling, for example, you know what I mean? And I had a new manager, and she said to me, do you know what the problem with being on top is? And I said, no. What is that? And she says, the only place you have to go is down. So I took that as a personal challenge, because I believe that as a female, you just need to I decided from a very early age, I am never going to be a victim. I'm a victor. So no matter what, I will adapt and overcome every situation. I can say that the whole adage, when someone tells you who they are or what they think about you, believe them. I then ended up being in this role and exceeding my own expectations, but never pleasing this person. And I would say that adapting and overcoming and hunkering down to be amazing isn't always the best strategy. So my advice to others is, if you encounter someone that doesn't like you for whatever personal reason, despite that being some of my best work, I made a lot of personal sacrifices and just the amount of stress this person caused me. And And I stayed in that role longer than I would have because I wanted to please and show her that I was good, that she could like me. And I would let those relationships fail faster in the future. If I encounter someone that just, anyone that says they don't like you, believe them and then just move on.
Right. Yeah. So don't waste your energy, time,
Don't do that.
Maybe pieces of your soul necessarily
really
to make them happy.
Yeah. Yeah. So at the same time, curate those relationships. But at the same time, if you encounter that brick wall, it don't, necessarily try and tackle that.
And it doesn't reflect poorly on you as a person that you couldn't turn that person necessarily.
Right. I just think as like a natural people pleaser wanting to adapt and overcome. And like I said, I still feel like it was some of my best work. And but I gave too much. It was our first meeting. She didn't even know who I was. She just already had decided that, which is odd, right? I don't really.
Did you know then? Did your gut? Did you feel it, and or did it take a while?
I've had similar personality encounters in my career, and the same people are typically in like non-one-on-one, more social engagements, very pleasant people. So it's a little diabolical to deal with, right? Because outside of a one-on-one, that particular person was very pleasant to me, right? But in a review situation, it was my worst performing years. I mean, where personally I know it was my best work, but from a review and a manager rating perspective, it was my lowest ratings ever. Because she didn't like me, and she was doing what she told me she said she was going to do, which was take me down, right? But I feel like that's made me a stronger person and made me realize that holding on to a bad situation too long, because I will adapt and to be a victor, it can be a debilitating feature, personality.
Yeah,
feature.
I could see that, especially the people pleasing. I mean, I like to joke, I'm maybe 5'4", probably shrinking at this point. But, I could work as hard as I want to be a top basketball player at 45. I'm never going to be that. So know those spaces where it is time and effective to throw, I don't want to say throw in the towel, but shift and pivot. Yeah. And that's not going to work. You gave it like you said, you're not a victim. You gave it your all. Yeah. But you shifted to become successful. Yeah. In another arena in a better way. Right. And I wonder if I've learned over time, there's certain values like, look, I will work hard. I'll give you everything I have. We'll be a good team. But when my values are misaligned, like it's being taken for granted, or you're this way here, but you're this way here, I can't. Right. That's when it's time to go. Yeah. So I wanted to give the examples of here's where I worked to adapt and overcome and curate those relationships versus here's a circumstance where maybe you shouldn't. So I just wanted folks to know there's a balance. And I think professionally and personally, right? Absolutely. There are people that come in and out of your life at different times for different reasons. Yes. And if you need to let that relationship go to move beyond, then it's okay. Mm-hmm. Instead of trying to keep a hold of it. In the end, you're probably doing that other person as a service. Yes. And yourself and those surrounding you. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if it's, I would say like fail faster, but I don't feel like I failed. But I feel like I should have failed that relationship, that moved on faster. But be careful of your people-pleasing internal and compass and know that it's not always right. Yeah. And sometimes you might be just that strong kick butt person, but there may be those certain situations or relationships where I don't know if you become, I don't know if weaker is the right, but you tend to lean in then to what others want and need from you versus staying true to yourself. Yes. Yes. And that's a hard place to be, both professionally and personally, when you want to, do new things, keep growing, rise the ranks, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. That would be hard to say. Nope. So where'd you move after that? How'd you move on? What was the epiphany? So I had, great
friends still within the commercial organization, and ran into an old boss in the cafeteria.
Yep. So take time to go get lunch.
Yes. And being visible and present has served me well in my career. Having the FaceTime, I can say it's much more difficult in this hybrid work environment. I typically work mostly from my home office on video calls back to back all day long. But any opportunity I can get to have an in-person meeting or show up on, on site somewhere for a personal lunch or something like that, these chance encounters, interactions can really serve you well, but you have to show up and you have to be present. So I feel like, COVID has put a lot of us inward, but like I said, unless you're in a very technical profession, it's really about the relationships you've built and the people that want to work with you, right? So I ran to a previous manager in the cafeteria, and he said, "We have this role in commercial we think you'd be great at," So that's how I moved on. So he luckily helped pluck me out of a difficult situation that I couldn't get out of on my own, essentially, right? Because I was still busy trying to people please this person.
But even so, something you said regarding working hard, maintain those relationships. I mean, I've somewhat been in a technical role, CPA, CFP.
Yeah.
You never know where life's going to take you.
Sure.
And even if you
that's true.
assume, back in the day, you stayed with the same role, the same company forever, that's no longer the case anymore. So I think no matter what role you're in, try to be building those relationships inside your team and outside your team and friendships.
Yeah.
Because you never know that one connection that's going to lead to the next best thing or reaffirm where you're at.
Yeah, I think absolutely. Well, and like you said, I guess the technical point I wanted to make is how females, we won't apply for a role unless we've ticked every box, right? But what people care about is your willingness to learn, right? And grow into that role. And that's just as valuable. So even if there's something that you're wanting and you don't have all those expertise, like the technical pieces of it, people want to know that you're likable, that you're relatable, and that you want to learn and grow into that role. So I guess that's where I was referencing the technical point. People don't care as much about who you know, what you know, as if they like you and want to do business with you, perhaps.
Well, and as you're sitting there saying this, and this is the first time I've thought about it, I'm sure somebody else has thought about it. Oftentimes you go in and you check all the boxes in that role as it is that day on that piece of paper.
Right.
But it's going to change and evolve.
Yeah.
And if you're not the personality that you just described there, then that role will outgrow you.
Yes.
And even if you checked all those boxes, I don't know the right word, you'll become a fraud or look like a fraud or whatever. So for those who don't have all those boxes checked, know that it's those attributes that often aren't teachable.
Right.
And those are what will keep you, not only get you to where you want to be in that role, but even beyond because of those personality traits.
Yeah, that being curious and wanting to learn more and know more, for sure.
So you go on to the new role, new area, feeling better, and you're back in, you're still in the Midwest in Nebraska, but back in Missouri at this point?
I am, yes. Yeah. I know, coming back, the timeline's a little off. So I was in Nebraska and then moved back to the headquarters, and I was in procurement and then took this commercial role.
So they're almost through all the different roles. And I remember when we were first meeting, of course, I looked up your LinkedIn. I was like, wow, she's been, project manager, sales manager, this manager, that, a lot of different places, as you pointed out earlier, a lot of new roles. What is it that not everybody would have that initiative or maybe the guts to do that, fearlessness?
Yeah.
What do you think it is?
For me, it's kind of the 4-year mark, right? Where you have the ability to learn the role, make some improvements, make your mark, have some great accomplishments of things you're proud of. And then for me, I'm ready to grow and learn more and add more value other places. So I feel like I'm in that stage now where I've been really focused on my personal and professional development and seeing those gaps and, self-created areas of my life where I can grow and improve, and having a vision for what my future self is and what that person looks like and what's uncomfortable about it, and then just growing into it. So now I'm in the process of kind of formulating my future self vision. What's my next extraordinary goal of something that I'm, a year from now going to be like, I can't believe I did that and accomplished that. So I guess I'm always looking for what's going to make me proud and make my heart sing and feel good. So for me, I guess it's like that 4-year gestation period where I'm like, okay, it's time to make that next extraordinary goal.
And it sounds like the value of always learning and growing,
yes.
And then filling those gaps. Was that there, little Carolyn on the farm? Do you think that was always there?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. I mean, I was the first person in my extended family to get an advanced, a master's degree, and so those types of things. So, I think that seeing my strong grandmother, would cut her nails with her pocket knife and things like that. Just wanting to be a strong, independent woman, like, wow, just, so yeah, I think that was always very inspiring to me.
Sounds like that was formative, having strong women, seeing that and then modeling it. And that definitely made an impression on you.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Both being businesswomen and having kids, and adds a whole new layer of learning, but complexity, relationship, I don't know, ahas, maybe role ahas. How has being in the business and having kids helped you grow, or what kind of obstacles, challenges have you had to deal with? Again, your husband has his own business too, so it's not like you have somebody just sitting at home taking care of everything.
Yeah. It's definitely required a stretch beyond my imagination, for sure. I know I had somebody ask me the other day, like, how do you do it? And I just kind of had this like shocked look on my face, like, I have no idea.
Well, you're not the only mom, business professional mom who said that. I think of that all the time.
Yeah, and I think I struggle with that daily. I think it goes back to, how do I take the success I've seen with teams in the business world to my personal life? And so that's definitely one of my personal growth areas, is like, how am I coordinating with the other moms on drop-offs or pickups, you know what I mean? And not being, I can do it all myself type thing. But I definitely know I have a high probability, like, I have to have like reason and logic in my life, and the level of patience with my children is like, I will have patience of steel for them, but I fully respect, the stay-at-home moms, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. But
well, it sounds that continuous need and yearning for learning,
yes,
and growth. While it's not that you can't do that as a mom. Believe me, my kids teach me something new, and they're all different. And
yes,
it's probably on that, I don't know, that maybe a learning that doesn't take as much patience as it would take to be home all the time.
Yeah.
And learning those pieces.
Yeah. I'm definitely learning a ton from, getting to know the other families within my girls' school. And a lot of them are stay-at-home moms, and really just seeing the emotions that pulls up inside of me and discovering those feelings. And so that's been a recent growth as my children are getting, kindergarten and second grade, and just now starting out with sports, right, and managing all those calendars. But certainly I love it.
But you said something earlier that in your work life, you have an easier time asking for help. Mm-hmm. In your home life, you don't, or your personal life, whatever we want to call it. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is? Why the difference? Why can you be one in one place and not in the other?
I think it's just, I think getting over like that female independence and knowing that leisure and self-care isn't a luxury. It's actually 100% necessary. You know, the whole secure your mask first before you help others. If I don't, secure my own mask, and so, my oxygen mask on a plane, right, referring to that, then you can't help others. So I think that's been my biggest growing. It's still a stretch for me to ask for help, but I've incorporated little things, just, having one night a week, every Thursday I have a sitter, just so I have that space for Carolyn to just self-reflect on where am I at, where am I going, how was the week, that self-reflection time I feel like is so important for anyone that wants to have extraordinary goals and be successful. So just kind of building those things in for myself. That's been my latest epiphany, is just one night a week where it's just a space for me, whether I want to go have a workout or do, personal things in the office or get organized or clean my desk. But that for me has been my little oasis.
That's a great tip, and in a non-guilt, it should be guilt-free.
Yeah.
To go ahead and ask for what you need and take care of yourself to be the best version of you for everybody else around you.
Yes, for sure.
It takes sleep. It takes... And that's where a lot of my journey has been in the last several years, this podcast, running all the time, listening to audiobooks. My husband's been great at driving kids if I'm focused on projects at work. It didn't dawn on me until a couple of years ago that I could say, you know what, Mom is going to run every day because I need exercise, I need time alone, and, being outdoors and things.
Yeah.
But up to that point, it always felt very guilty.
Yes.
That I couldn't do that or ask for it to do it every day. It just, this guilt held me back.
Well, and I think my mother's generation instills that guilt, right? Because that generation, for you to have any sort of leisure or self-care, it didn't make you a great mother, made you selfish. Like, you didn't have girls' trips or, time to get a massage, or that wasn't a thing that they did. It was frowned upon, right? So I think that guilt is still there.
We almost need another generation to shed that, DNA, how our brains work, infusion, because I remember my mom stressing, and she worked part-time. She was a nurse, so she couldn't be at every school event, but I know at least once or twice she wanted to be the room mom.
Yeah.
And planning the parties and whatever else it was. Looking back, I can see it stressed her out to want to be able to do that for us. Mm-hmm. And now I feel like sometimes I need to play that same game.
Yeah.
And the guilt's still there.
Yeah. It's still there.
But I've luckily I do have the kids. My oldest is almost 17, boy, so he's still there in the appreciation mode. But even the girls have said, Mom, I'm more independent than a lot of my friends in my class because of this. Like, I'm so proud of you and your success and what you're providing for the family, that it also gives me some benefits to grow and learn on my own, where if you were hovering and doing everything for me, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Exactly.
So thank goodness for them helping ease the guilt. It's still there.
For sure.
But I like the tip of, a Thursday night or whatever it might be, coming up with some time for you that you need, guilt-free, and make it a habit and try not to break that habit.
Yeah.
Any other good tips or things that you've put into place? You're probably still somewhat new in it with the girls so young.
I am, yeah. I mean, I yelled at my girlfriends because I didn't realize over the summer I had 14 weeks of programming that I needed to do for my children once, they're no longer in preschool, right? So things like that. So that was a shocker for me. But yeah, I really just lean on my girlfriends that I was a late bloomer in the kids category. So a lot of them have already been, they're sending away their kids away to college and things like that. So I call my girlfriends and say, well, here, what's coming? I got all these sporty events. How am I going to, juggle all of that? So I think just, leaning on my tribe, my girlfriends.
And it's not going to be perfect. So somebody's going to go to a game with the wrong jersey or with the wrong whatever. They're going to forget the water bottle, and everyone survives, and you get through it. And you end up, for the most part, I think, forgetting about those instances. But then you can ask those around you for help and put it on the kids, when they're old enough. Like, it's your game. Right. You need to start taking responsibility.
Yeah. No, I don't have all those answers figured out. So definitely would look for any sort of advice there. It's like how to juggle it all.
Again, a learning and growing environment, always at work.
For sure.
And at home.
Yes.
Any other obstacles that you came across or learning experiences that, helped really shake you into who you are?
Yeah, I think that, that following up on any of the uncomfortable situations, right? Just, being present, connecting and letting people know you care. I've had, kind of seemingly catastrophic things happen with sales where, product performance wasn't quite there or what have you. And then over the course of multiple conversations, come to find out it wasn't as bad as the situation had originally played itself out to be. You know what I mean? So I think that uncomfortableness, getting used to that feeling, right? And not thinking it of as a negative, thinking of, the uncomfortable feelings that it could be excitement or it could be an opportunity awaiting itself. And that's what I found is that anytime someone's been upset with me because of whatever the company has done, or maybe, something they didn't think I did quite right or said right, continuing to follow up and let people know that you care. And I've personally seen that pivot into really rewarding situations. In Nebraska, having, a windstorm came through, 60-mile-an-hour winds, and all of a farmer's crop going down on the ground, at the harvest time. And it's like, I have a complete devastation. And then, come to find out, listening a lot and not talking a lot ended up being that farmer's highest yielding corn he'd ever had, even though he had to pick it up off the ground, helped him get some equipment that allowed his combine, to be modified to pick that up. And then over the course of technical conversations about why this would happen, coming to find out, I planted the population, tighter than you had recommended. And so it made it more susceptible to, situation starting out like, you've done something really horrible and messed this up. If you can have the humility to just swallow that coal and continue to show up and ask questions and maintain that relationship, which is versus what your instinct would be, would maybe be able to kind of step back. So again, they're pulling in your team. Hey, we've got an emergency. This is a situation. You know what I mean? Really being humble about a situation and not placing fault or blame, and just, bringing in the technical people or the customer service people. And so what was really a bad situation ended up being the best situation. You know what I mean? It could have possibly been.
Almost, I don't know, maybe you have other stories, but might be one of the best stories to wrap up things that we talked about today. And I love that you brought in the humility, because, I've run across people who either think they know everything or think they need to show everybody they know everything to show their value. But you did the opposite.
Yeah. Say, I have no idea why this happened. I'm so sorry, right? And I feel like, that humility will always serve you well. Like you said, saying, I don't have all the answers. I'm not a technical person. I can tell you everything about the marketing programs and all the sales lines. But just, I think having that humility, and wasn't where I started out my career, right? But it definitely grew into that
And that's how you build the deeper relationships, along with asking the questions, being, and almost that pause. If you jump in to try to solve it right away, pause.
The pause is pivotal. Yes.
Pause is pivotal. I like that. I'm going to write that down.
That pause, it creates the space and the reflection, and it does show that humility.
And as I'm writing this down, what we just talked about, being working moms and always go, 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 and giving to everyone else, the pause is pivotal for ourselves.
Absolutely.
To create space.
Good job, Cynthia.
I'm always learning in these things. I think I've read so many books and I've learned so much already, but sometimes just sitting there,
absolutely,
it gives me so much more. That's why I love.
And a conversation for self-reflection, all of that. Yeah.
Yep. And again, back to some of the important things you said, be uncomfortable.
Yes.
Because if you probably wouldn't be where you're at today if you hadn't gone through some of those uncomfortable situations of get out of my office, go away, to learning the person who didn't like you wasn't going to like you.
Right.
Get
Not
uncomfortable.
everyone has to like you. Yeah.
To move forward.
Yeah.
Or beyond.
Yes.
Where you would have otherwise.
Absolutely.
So maybe try as early as you can, get uncomfortable as early as you can.
Try new experiences, get in those customer facing roles so you can really speak from a customer's lens. And
that probably helps with the communication, building your communication skills, because if you're surrounded by the same people every day in an internal team, yes, some of that will be challenged and developed, but dealing with different customers face to face, and then being kind of that liaison, it's going to push so many different ways of thinking and communicating.
Absolutely. Yeah. And showing up in person, especially today, I think it's seen as a novelty. Right. But really pushing for that personal in-person connection. And
back to relationships and networking, which is everything.
Yes.
What new circles or new places can you test out to meet new people? I'm so glad you did that morning because we're here today. But again, some of the times where I remember my son was a freshman in high school, and there was a family or parent party, and we were talking about it. I was like, we really don't want to go. We're so tired, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we went. And I said, no, we have to go. We have to meet new people. We have to figure this out. And one of our best growth learning relationships came from being present.
Yes.
And asking a lot of questions that night.
Absolutely.
And a lot of interactions and relationships from that one interaction.
Right. And even if you, it's taking the seat at the table, right? And then once you're there, even if you're uncomfortable and you feel like you don't belong, like you said, it's clarifying what someone said or asking the great questions, right? So even if you feel like I don't have the expertise to have this seat at the table, it's taking it anyway, and then engaging. I'm shocked at the number of, meetings I'm in where people don't engage. They show up, they're there, but they're not asking questions. They're not providing, value. And I think that's another way, if you're working remotely, that if you are attending, meetings, that you're showing up and you're engaging. I think engaging and the follow-up piece of it, right? Don't assume that someone doesn't want to hear from you or they've already got it all together. That little touch base, that phone call, that text to let you folks know, but really showing up and engaging. So many people today, I feel like that's how I've gotten my jobs, that learner in me, right? That just engagement, even if I don't have anything to add to the conversation, just saying what I think you said is, and just clarifying, right? And then, like you said, asking those great questions.
Here I'm thinking we're wrapping this up and there's not more that we could add to the conversation. And I think that's a great point of even if you show up and you don't have the answers, ask a question. Say, and you may even say, I don't fully understand. Can you go back to this? Can you explain a little bit more? And that may bring out a totally different solution had you not asked that question. Just, can you explain that a little bit more? Can you give me some more? Or what? Was there something more to that you can add?
Right. And I'm amazed how many people just don't ask the questions or provide that clarifying point, or even compliment someone like, wow, you did a really great job doing X, Y, and Z. Thank you. So I'm amazed, be the person that speaks up.
And something I've noticed within the past couple years. I think, I don't know what my mental blockage was, and maybe somebody at some point can really help me figure that out, but dive deep into the recesses of my mind and soul. I just took it for granted that my voice didn't matter. As far as, you know, even just recently, I'll see things on Facebook from the kids' schools and, you know, such and such team at the school, and you'll see a picture of a friend's daughter. And I just snapped it really fast, sent it, and I said, "That's so cool. How awesome."
Yeah.
Because that's really what I thought when I saw it.
Yeah.
That's really cool. How awesome. I bet they're so happy and proud. And I went ahead and just sent it recently to a couple of them, and they're like, "Oh, thanks for sending that." You know, just adding that joy, adding that I'm here. I value our relationship. And I just wanted to communicate how great that was. Like you said, just send that call, that email. You know, that was a great presentation. You did a really great job there. That was an amazing question you asked. People want to hear that.
They do. Yeah. And that's coaching for myself and for others. You know what I mean?
That's just reaffirming lately what I've took too long to figure out. But it's those moments I go back to somebody and say, just, by the way, I wanted you to know that so-and-so and so-and-so said this about you. And it reignited an amazing relationship that had I just sat on the sidelines and said, just that's not important.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Well, what else? Really will wrap up this time, because we covered so many great things and, you know, so many things to reflect on. Anything we missed or points that you wanted to get out there? You brought so many good things to the table.
I don't think so. I just thank you so much for having me. I'm just delighted to be associated with your other SheLift interviewees. And I love your model here and kind of how you've broken out of the box, the mold, how you've, you know, created this environment for us to share and lift each other up. And I'm just really appreciative. Thank you.
Well, thank you for getting outside the box and for joining me on this crazy journey. If people want to find you, they can go on various social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, to find you.
Carolyn Mancini.
All right. And all the show notes, your name, how it's spelled, will all be out there so they can find you.
Great. Thanks, Cynthia.
Thank you so much for your insight and for coming and sharing today.
Absolutely.
This concludes another episode of the SheLift Project podcast. To hear more episodes of the show, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And to learn more about our mission of helping women reach higher levels of success, visit SheLiftProject.com and sign up to receive the latest news, ebooks, videos, and more.